Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you guys listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of your social media platforms. Also, make sure you guys go to our new YouTube channel and check us out there at the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where we have several podcasts there for your listening pleasure. We have more than just the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. We have other podcasts there. Go to Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube in order to check us out there. Also, make sure you guys check out our partner podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. On that podcast, I have conversations with other girl dads like myself, discussing the relationship between the daddy and daughters. And I started that podcast in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. So you guys don't want to miss that. Make sure you guys go and check it out, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast that's there. And our product of the week, as you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase. And this week's product is our Purpose Journal, as well as our Purpose Planner, because I believe we ought to journal in order to see where we've come from and where we are, as well as plan for our future. So make sure you guys go get your copy of our Purpose Planner and our Purpose Journal. Both of them are on Amazon. The links, the links are in the description below. So make sure you guys go and check that out. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Williams. How you doing?
I'm good. Ernest, how you doing, bro?
I am good. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So we're going to jump right in. Do me a favor. Introduce yourself to my listeners and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do.
What's going on, everybody? My name, as he said, is Quadarius Williams. Y'all, I got a beautiful family. I will start there. I have three kids: a 5-year-old, a 18-month-old, and a 5-month-old. So I don't know what sleep is, to say the least. So what I do is I'm a teacher. I've been an educator for 10 years now. It's my degree. It's my passion. It's my purpose. And my life's mission in the education field is to really just transform the lives of teenagers by changing the way that they think. And so I have my own business with the same energy to where I go around and I speak for different schools, churches, camps, just the teenagers, just really getting them while they're young, Ernest, because trauma starts young.
Mhm.
Satan throws that thing out there young, and it comes for them. And so my mission, my purpose, is to get them while they're young, so that way I can combat Satan that way. And so, man, I love to speak. I'm a youth pastor as well for the Harvest Church in Mesquite, where Pastor Dan is the pastor there. So yeah, man, that's brief about me, bro.
Okay, okay. So I want to hit two things on that. The first one I want to ask: were you a PK or are you a PK? Should I say?
I
Okay,
am.
okay, right. I always have to
Yeah.
ask you sometimes. So, for my listeners who don't know what a PK is, it's a pastor's kid or a preacher's kid, either one. So most, not most, but a lot of people that are in ministry, a lot of them was born into it, as myself, and so that's why I asked. The second thing you mentioned that you have children, and from a previous, before we got started recording, I asked you,
Mhm.
were you a girl dad? And you said yes. And so I want to ask you the same two questions I ask every girl dad when I have them on. What does it mean to you to be a girl dad? And what is something that your daughter has taught you thus far?
Man, what it means to me to be a girl dad, that's such a good question. If I can be honest, changing her diaper is when it really hit me. It really hits me how precious girls are. Like all life comes through the woman. And just let's be honest, everybody has their wild days when they're younger in their 20s, and maybe you're listening to this and you haven't settled down, man. But having a girl dad, I mean, being a girl dad, having a girl, let me know that just really makes me appreciate how precious the woman is. And what was your second question?
What is something that she's taught you?
Man, she's taught me patience. She's taught me love. She's taught me joy, Ernest. Quick story, man. I named her Summer Rain Joy Williams. When we learned that we were pregnant with her, we were having a lot of personal stuff in our lives. Life was lifing,
Mhm.
and so I told Chandra, my wife, I said, "Babe, can we put joy in her name?" She was like, "Yeah, let's put joy." And her name is a bit prophetic because whenever I'm having a bad day and I don't feel joy, all I got to do is pick her up and I'm holding joy.
Mhm.
So what she has taught me is she's taught me how to be joyful, full of joy. So yeah, man. I've learned to embrace what joy really means by being a girl dad, bro.
All right, I love it. I love it.
Mm,
I love it. And definitely, for my listeners, we're definitely going to have Cardarius on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. At
mm,
some point. So whenever you finish, guys, you finish listening to this, go over and check out the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. We're on all your listening podcast platforms as well as YouTube, so you can go finish watching this one and then jump
mm.
right over and watch that one. So that's going to be interesting also. But on the Deal to Heal podcast, we're going back to that mission that you mentioned, with getting the kids early, and being able to help them identify and come through some of the things that they're dealing with as far as trauma. So we're going to get into that. Before we go into that, though, we want to go back to your story because I know that there was, for most of us, there is a version of ourselves that we are right in the beginning,
Mhm.
and then there's something that happens in our lives or around us that makes us change into the person that we are today.
Right.
They're using an event that happened and it said, you know what? Not only did I go through this, but I've made it to the other side. Now I'm going to help someone else,
Mm.
to be able to make it through as well. So tell us a little about the early, Kadarius, and then what was the thing that happened in your life that made you be like, now I'm going to spend my life helping others to overcome their traumas as well?
So that's such a great question. And I'm a journaler. So I have to write down my talking points, man. Or I'm going to be talking and I'm going to forget it. All right. So, my name is literally Cordarius. Like it's broken up and I break it up into two parts. People be like Cordelius. I'm like, no, Cordarius, Darius with a core. And so when you talk about the first part of my name, it being core, man, I'm a man of my core. Like I'm a man of my values. I'm a man of my word. Like my core values mean a lot to me. In fact, like my name actually means integrity, like doing the right thing when no one's looking. So in September of 2022, man, I had a one-on-one meeting with Tim Ross. Are you familiar with Tim Ross?
Yes, I am. Actually met him this year
That man at the conference.
at the conference. Yes, I did.
Man. Okay, so I met before the podcast stuff started. I went to his church, man, and I met with him September of 2022, and that's when my transformation started. I was going through a tough time mentally, and I had no idea what it was. I was like, man, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I keep doing this and why do I keep doing that? Like, God, oh wretched man that I am, type deal. It's like when I want to do good, I do bad, and I do bad when I want to do good. It's like I was tired of myself, so I sought out a meeting with Tim Ross, and we met face to face. And he told me this, and it changed the trajectory of my life, bro. He said that there has to come a point in time to where you let big core lead little core. He said you've been living in a lens of little core. Now it's time for you to crucify little core. It's time for you to put him up on a cross and let big core take over because you're going to produce a lot of fruit, but not with little core leading your life. So that was the moment to where I really started therapy. He put me on to my therapist. Shout out to Brian. He put me on with my therapist. And man, my life started changing when I said, okay, I have to put to rest some things that little core do, some things that little core think. So that way I can let this new me lead, bro. And so that was
Yeah.
that moment, man, where I really just flipped the switch. Like, okay, this is who I am now. I'm big core now.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about this earlier this week. It may have been earlier today, just how important or just how much of a part our childhood plays in our adulthood.
Right.
Just how much as like you mentioned, like the little core, just how much that little person plays in the lives of the adult.
Hmm.
And when we start going through traumas, start dealing with traumas, and start really looking at the core of some of the things and some of the actions that we do as an adult, you'll be surprised. Most of us who's not really thinking about it on a daily basis or into the realm of mentorship and things like that. But the average person will be really surprised how much the actions and the things that happen to you as a child has
Hmm.
developed you as an adult. And like
Hmm.
you said, even getting to the point where you're doing things and don't even know why you're doing it. You're like, why
Right.
do I like this? Why am I going here? Like I don't even get fulfillment out of it, but it's like almost autopilot. And then as we start to dig into, those things, then we realize that, oh, that was something that happened to me, when I was a child or in my development stages, that as a coping mechanism, I picked this action up. I picked this idea up. I picked these ways up, and I've been acting out ever since then without even realizing it. You
Right.
know, and so when you're talking to the youth and the teens that you deal with, who has been in some type of trauma, how do you get them to even to begin to identify that they even have had trauma happen in their lives? Because a lot of things, we're dealing with trauma all the time, and some of us are in environments where there's trauma happening around us every day all the time, and so we don't even realize it because it's normal for us. So how do
Hmm.
you even get the teens that you talk to, how do you get them to even realize, like, okay, there are some traumatic things that has happened or is currently happening in your life, and you need to address them, like you said, while you're young, so they don't become habits and actions
Hmm.
when they're older.
Man, that's such a great question because I got to navigate it differently because I'm in education and I'm in a church setting, right? In
Mhm.
education, there is only so much things that I can say in a math classroom because I teach math.
Right.
And so, and then now this church setting is new to me. So, but what I do really, I mean, I gain the kids' trust, bro. First, I gain their trust because they're never going to listen to me if they don't know who I am. Teenagers don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mhm.
And so I like to use my care to empower them to tackle their trauma. So I like to slow play it, is what I call it. So in order to get them to identify their trauma in a classroom, man, I just tell them that math is a metaphor for life. It's really a big setup, bro. It's really a big year-long setup. I'm not in a rush. I got all year because you know how it is. If you just dump healing on people, they not gonna want to do it because it's a lot of work, fam. It's a
Mhm.
lot of work, and it ain't for the lazy. It ain't for
Right.
the lazy. And so I got a whole year in the classroom with these kids. And so I empower them by telling them my story. And I tell them bits and pieces like growing up without a dad. I tell them bits and pieces. I don't go into the real traumatic stuff, but I do inside of the church setting, on my personal podcast as well. I teach through metaphors and I teach through analogies. And so one of the biggest analogies that I teach them to identify their trauma is I teach them about roots and fruits because
Mm.
they're wondering why they can't pass math. They can't pass math because of their bad habits from last year. It's not the fact that they're slow. The root is they just got bad habits. And so I tell them that the life is like the same thing. It's not, yeah, life be lifing. It ain't the fact that your life is meant to be lived in poverty. You can make the decision to not live your life in poverty. But you got to identify the root. What is that seed that's planted in your head that has grown roots in your brain that is making you produce the fruit, the action that you're producing? And I break that process down, bro, because it's a constant process, man. And I tell them what trauma is, and I just dive in there that way, bro.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's really important to go back to what you said about, and even not just teenagers, but people in general don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And so a
Mhm.
lot of times, a lot of times us as speakers, as ministers, sometimes as preachers, or even teachers in some cases, who have spent our whole life getting the degrees, getting the certificates, getting the trophies. Sometimes we begin to present ourselves as that. And so when we come to a space and it's like, oh, we got a new teacher, Mr. Williams, just use it for you as an example. Mr. Williams is here today. He's going to be our teacher for the year, and then this is his credentials. And sometimes because we spent so much time getting those credentials to
Mhm.
prove how much we know, we present that to our classrooms, we present that to our congregations, and we present that to the people that we're supposed to be caring
That's
for.
good.
And it's like, hey, I'm the pastor, I got this degree, I got this, I've done this, I've been pastoring and teaching for 20 years, and I've been teacher of the year and all this stuff. And they like, we don't care about none of that. You know what I'm
None of
saying?
it.
Like, if you can't let me know that, yeah, you've done all that, but how is that going to affect me?
Mm.
So when we're able to break it down and let them know how much we care about them, then they begin to listen. And then we can say, because we've gained their trust, like you said, with the care, then they was like, okay, what else is behind the care? What else can I learn from this person?
Right. And that is so good because the thing is they lose trust because somebody that they cared for abused them, took advantage of them. And so now they've lost hope in their mama, they've lost hope in their daddy, whether it be mental abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. They've lost hope in a person that they care about, man. And it's almost like, very humbly stated, it's almost like when they look at me, bro, I really can't explain it, but it's almost like they look at me like I'm fictional.
Hmm.
Because like what my care is an acronym, and the A, the C stands for consistency, the A stands for authenticity, the R stands for building relationships, and the E stands for empowerment. But they look at me like, hey, are you real? Like, why are you talking? And you a man, and you a black man teaching math. You don't see that no more, you know? Like, and they like, are you real? Like, whoa, you talking about this and you're getting me to see that I can do more in math and stuff like that. But I can't go to first base without showing them that I am a real person and that I really care, bro. And because I care for them, They care enough for themselves because they're kids. They care enough for themselves to heal their trauma.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you know what? So I want to go to the next question because you kind of lead it to that because once they begin to care enough about themselves that they want to heal the traumas that they've been experiencing. One of the things that I always say when dealing with healing is the first step is to acknowledge it. You know,
Mhm,
say acknowledge it and announce it, right?
mhm,
So when you're working with the kids and after you've got them to first of all to begin to care or begin to
mhm,
know that you care and them
mhm,
to care about themselves, how do you then encourage them and probably even instruct them in some way to be able to communicate that okay, this happened to me and this is how I feel? Because I think that's the first step in healing, again, to acknowledge it and then announce it. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? Like, look,
mhm,
I've been through this. You know, using myself for example, I've been through depression. I've been through suicidal ideation. You know,
mhm,
and now I can say it, you know, boldly because I've made it to the other side of it. But if we
mhm,
can't even acknowledge that, okay, this is something that I'm dealing with, and then be able to stand up and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm dealing with, this is how I feel about it, then
mhm,
we can't never get to the other side of the healing. So when you're working with these teens and you know they've came to the realization that okay, I am dealing with some traumas, how do you get them to then be able to verbalize it and communicate it so that they can say it to you, so they can say it to their parents, so they can say it to a therapist themselves if they
mhm.
even get to that point, you know, to be able to communicate that this is what I'm dealing with and this is what I need help with.
Man, so I'm gonna give you a visual. This is actually what I drew on my board today. Matter of fact, I drew a timeline of the years that they've been born. I teach 10 and 11 year olds. My timeline was from 0 to 20 years of age, and then 10 is right in the middle, and 10 and 11 is right in the middle. So today, what I did today, just earlier today, I told them the reason why it's hard for them to get all A's is because their mindset is on the other side of the timeline. It's on the past. It's not on the present and the future. They can't see they can't see the future version of themselves, but I can. So I get them to see. I challenge them to see the future version of themselves because if they don't see I'm a veterinarian, if they don't see a doctor, if they don't see a lawyer, they're never going to be motivated to heal. So what I did today, there was this young lady in the right in back in the back right corner, and I looked her dead in her eyes prophetically, bro, and I told her, I said, "Hey, listen, there is so much in you." I said, but you don't see it. I said, you're dealing with depression. You're probably dealing with anxiety. And the reason why I know that is because I've noticed in the hallways, you find your belonging in boys. I said, I'm not throwing shade. I'm not being funny. I'm just being honest. And if I'm lying, please let me know. And I said, but let me tell you who you are real fast. And I went on to tell her who she was. And I was looking her dead in her eye. After class, she came up to me, bro. Here's to answer your question. She said, so you mentioned depression. And this is one on one. She said, "So, how do I get over depression?" This is a 10-year old.
Mm.
This is a 10-year old, bro. So you ask me, you say, "How do I get people to communicate it?" I mean, I just tell them who they really are, and I know that's the third point, but I empower them, man. I motivate them. I motivate them by being transparent and vulnerable myself. Like I tell them that I'm the template. Just do what I do. You don't have to do it how I did it. Just do what I do. You can take it out, plug it in, take it out, plug it in, do whatever it does. You know, do whatever you need to do the way you need to do it, type deal. And so at that
Mhm.
moment, I was able to tell the young lady, I said, okay, scan this QR code and you'll be able to talk to a school counselor. I said, better yet, take it home and bring it back to me when you scanned it. Right there, I got her to communicate to me, and she's about to communicate to a therapist because I'm only a teacher in this setting. So, man, I just empower them. I motivate them. I'm transparent, man. I'm vulnerable. I'm real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you kind of hit it on it when you were talking that I guess the next stage of it, right? So you get them to be able to speak on it and to say that this is what they're dealing with, but then there comes a part of them that has to realize and they also accept that this is who they are, and this is, this has happened to them, and that this is going to be a part of them even as they move forward. And so you talked a little bit about, even getting them to embrace themselves and embrace
Hmm.
the trueness of who they are, in their personalities and the things that they're dealing with. So what are some of the ways, because you mentioned about definitely being vulnerable yourself and sharing yourself so that they know that you care, you know what I mean? But what are even some of the ways that you kind of lead them into being able to accept themselves and the version of themselves, especially as teenagers? Now you said 10, so that's actually before, that's like
Right,
preteen, you know what I
right,
mean?
right.
But even then, because of the the internet, and everything that's
Hmm.
on TV, everything that's
Hmm.
readily available to them, that's impressionable upon them, what they listen to, what they watch, the things that they see,
Hmm.
that they're bombarded by what the world or the systems around them and even the environment telling them who they should be. So
Right.
a lot of them don't even know who they are, because
Mm-hmm.
they're the voices of the on the outside overshower the voice on the inside. And so
Hmm.
as you're working with them, what are some of the ways that you begin to get them to be able to embrace who they are to their core, who they are to themselves?
Man, I teach them, in order to do that, they got to get dirty. If you think about gardening, bro, and you think about the root and the fruit system, whenever you have a bad plant, you can't just cut it off. You got to take the roots out, bro, or it could contaminate the whole garden.
Mhm.
Or it could mess up the neighbors. It could mess up the people just by one faulty root system, bro. So I let them know that it's a dirty process, and I let them know off the get go. Probably only 25% of them gonna go down this journey with me, because they not everybody not willing to get dirty. Everybody not willing to put the work in to identify and communicate, because really you're going to stay in the identification stage for a while, and you're going to stay in the communication stage for a while. And they're repetitive, because 1 in 4 teenagers deal with a trauma, and 2 in every 3 teenagers deal with multiple traumas. Like, that's a lot. I got like 3 4 of them things, man. And I'll uncover some of them, I'm sure, today. But I teach them that, listen, it's gonna get dirty. You gotta forget about little core. You gotta go back and you gotta dig out some of the bad roots that has been programming you for a long time before you can ever see who you can be. Because it's like talking to a tree. If I tell them who they are, like, this is the third, fourth week of school. So I was able to look that young lady in her eyes and tell who she was. But that's after 3 or 4 weeks of planting
Mhm.
seeds. Planting seeds. She ain't in there throwing seeds her way, Ernest. I'm just throwing seeds. And today I was able to tell her who she really was. But before I do that, like I just said, I have to get them to take that version out of them. And that's extremely hard, because a lot of it, a lot of who they see themselves as is their parents.
Mm.
So I'm a third party coming in here, essentially talking about they role models, and they know it. And so so I teach them how to through accomplishing math, through passing math. I teach them that they can actually create the version of themselves that they want to create. And that's a process that I like to call mind mapping, to where you're able to sit and mind map, like the young lady said. She said, "Hey, how can I work past depression?" I said, "Okay, why are you depressed?" I said, "What happened to you?" I said, "Now we can't talk about it right now." I said, "But what happened to you that's being pressed deep into your mind? Depression." I said, "What is in you that you aren't expressing?" And so we just do a lot of root digging, bro.
I
I'm
like it.
long
I
winded,
like it.
man.
No, it's
Oh,
all good. It's
all
good.
right.
I love it. And one of the things that you kept, you made reference to dirt and seeds, right? And so that brings me to another um, story, should I say, for lack of a better term, of the difference of being planted and being buried, right? Because if we're not careful, we can get the two mixed up, right? So because on the outside they both look the same, right?
Mhm.
So when you're planting a seed, physically a plant, when you're planting the seed, you're digging up dirt, you putting it down in a hole, and then you're covering it back up with the same dirt.
Mhm. Mhm.
When you're burying somebody, you're picking up dirt, you're putting it down in the hole, and then you're covering them back up. So both things look the same, except one procedure is living and one of them is dead.
Mhm.
And so when we are not aware, sometimes we can get those two things mixed up, because sometimes we think that the things that we're going through and the experiences that we're having is meaning to bury us, is meaning to
Mhm.
kill us. But
Mhm.
sometimes, again, those seeds that's being planted, you don't
Mhm.
realize that no, these things are happening to you in a way for you to grow, right? In a
Mhm.
way for you to acknowledge. And so again, both being planted and being buried, it looks the same on the outside, but
Mhm.
the difference is what you're burying. Are you burying a seed, or are you burying something that's dead? And
Mhm.
once you get the children or the person, whoever you're talking to realize, no, you're still alive. Like
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
spirit is still here, you're still breathing, which means all the dirt that's on top of you, you still
Right.
have what's needed in order to push through that and come out on the outside as a beautiful flower. But you
Mhm.
got to push through that dirt. You got to push through
Yeah.
that water, whatever it is that seems to have you bogged down. You got to
Mhm.
be able to push through that in order to show people that you're still alive. Because if
Yeah.
you can stay still and stay there, then everybody gonna think you're dead. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Then
You're gonna
people
look like
gonna walk
everybody
up,
else.
walk past you, walk on you. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And so I think that's very important, because like I said, you were mentioning about the seed, and I think that's very important for us to realize that we're all seeds, and now
Mhm.
the experiences that we're having are seeds in our lives. And
Mhm.
that we are going through some things and we're learning some things, but it's all for our growth. It's all to help us to live, not just to bury us as if we're dead, because we're not. We're still
We're
here.
not. And you put it perfectly, bro, with that seed. A lot of things, 2 points with that. A lot of things people don't realize is that number one, seeds grow in the dark. So that dark thing that's hanging over your head, that's actually meant for you to grow through. That's your story. For mine, it's sexual abuse. And as a 28-year-old man, I'm 30 now, but as a 28-year-old man, bro, I had to deal with that. I kept that secret for 2 decades, man. I didn't even tell my mom for 2 decades, bro. And so now, as a 28-year-old man with 2 kids, I either had two or one kid at the time, and I had 2 kids in 2 years, so I don't my timing off. So, by the same woman. So it was bang, 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 bang. Like, but, but, but having to grow in the dark was very painful, because while the dirt was pushing down on me, I had to have the tenacity to keep going up. And I'm gonna pause and let that one marinate for a second. I had to keep growing up, even though it felt like my shoulders were heavy with darkness, bro. And at the time that I'm there growing up, before I even grew up, second point, my roots had to grow down.
Mhm.
I had to get anchored as a man. I had to get anchored in God. I had to get anchored in my marriage. I had to get anchored as a father. I had to get anchored in who God has created me to be. I had to get anchored in that. That's my root system, bro. I have a very intricate root system now. I ain't going nowhere. I'm rooted in God. But I had to understand that growing down and growing up through the darkness, bro, man, everybody ain't built for that. It's a tough process, man. It's a tough process, bro.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. So I want to go to you mentioned something earlier, and
Yeah.
you kind of went past it, but I want to bring it back, that you're here as a guest on my podcast. Excuse me. But I heard you say that you have a podcast.
Yeah, I do. I do have a podcast. It's in the beginning stages right now.
Mhm.
Having these kids got me inconsistent. I'm tired. But on YouTube, it's Coach Williams University. Coach Williams University. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Facebook as Cordarius Williams. Coach Williams University on YouTube is my podcast, and we're the number one podcast for teenagers. Now, my voice, what I talk about, Ernest, is for everybody because I believe adults are adults dealing with teenage problems
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Yep.
right? So I'm really talking to everybody. But like I told you earlier, I'm really going for the teenager. And on my podcast is really where I can sit and I could just really just dive into the stuff that, like this ICE method. I have an episode on the identifying the trauma, communicating your trauma, and embracing you. ICE is the acronym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I got the podcast. I got a podcast, bro. It's rolling slowly but surely.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. And I'm a guy that loves acronyms. I don't know if you've watched the show, but I tell anybody, I'm a guy that loves acronyms, and you didn't drop a couple of them. So I'm have to go back and write these down. Like, oh, that was good. That boy good. So I'm definitely going to check those out. And is there anything else you have in the works even now? Again, because once we put this episode out, it's going to be out in the universe forever. You know what I'm saying? So, is there anything else that you have in the works right now that we can look forward to in the future?
Yeah, I'm currently getting my book published. My book is called From Hurting to Healing, and it's an offensive playbook to healing from your trauma. So I'm gonna break the title down real fast. So I believe to have a successful life, you got to navigate from hurting to healing. Like a lot of people are hurting and they live their life in hurt, so they make decisions in hurt. Like, and there's nothing wrong with them, but I mean, they just have like these glasses. These glasses represent their trauma, and they see life a certain way. They can't navigate, they can't live a full life and a purposeful life if they still have the trauma in front of their face, right? So I navigate them from hurting to healing. And my subtitle suggests that it's an offensive playbook. You're not going to be able to do this playing defense, like making good on the bad decisions that you did. No, you're going to have to learn how to stop
Mhm.
making bad decisions. You have to go on the offense. Like the Satan is like a roaring lion seeking to devour. Like, and I have to be on the offensive in order to combat him. Number one, the victory is already won. I just got to have the faith to go and do it. And so the offensive playbook suggests that I'm giving practical tools to humanity on how to navigate from hurting to healing. And like I said earlier, I'm just a template. But if you read my book, because it's a workbook, if you read my book and you take it seriously, you will heal from your trauma. Here's how I know that. A month ago, I read my book for the first time as a reader, not an author. Man, I got a section in there to where I list 5 offensive plays, like journaling, walking, reading, stuff like that. Man, I did a tally on my life, bro. I was 0 for 5. I wasn't journaling, I wasn't walking, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't talking, I wasn't doing any of that, bro. But when I started doing it, Ernest, just a month ago, my life started to turn around again for me. And so it's an offensive playbook. So man, when you listen to this, it's in the publishing process. So it's just about a 6-month process. Whenever you listen to it, it's available everywhere. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever books are available. That's where it's going to be available. And so, yeah, bro.
Yeah, yeah. So make sure you guys, whenever you listen to this, again, I tell you, give you guys your call to action. When you finish listening to this episode,
Mm-hmm,
go to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast and listen
mm-hmm,
to his episode on there.
mm-hmm,
Okay, that's the first thing I want you to do. Then, the second thing I want you to do is make sure you go look up his book, right? Because by the time you're hearing this, it should be out, it should be available. And if it's not, give it a couple days and then go check again, right?
check
Because
again.
it's gonna be out.
And the beautiful thing to that, bro, is that my podcast is mirrored to my book. So the topics that I talk about on my podcast actually brings forth the deeper principles in my book. So when you go listen, after you listen to this podcast, you're gonna go listen to the Girl Dad podcast. After
Right.
you finish that one, go look me up and look up my podcast. And each episode, you will see you will see a progression of how to deal with trauma. You will see a progression of how to parent teenagers with trauma. You know what I'm saying? Because not only did I have to unpack my sexual abuse by my brother, I hadn't said that in a platform like this, and I don't know why my spirit is telling me to tell you who my abuser was. So not only did I have to unpack that, I also had to unpack the reason why I didn't tell my mama.
Mhm.
you know? And so when you look at my podcast, you're going to learn how to parent kids with trauma. You're going to learn, teenagers, how to deal with your trauma. I mean, and friends, you're going to learn that your friend, 1 in 4 people deal with a trauma. So your friend has a trauma, you
Right,
know?
right,
And so that's what you're going to, and that's deeper principles in my book, bro.
right, right. I love it. I love it. Man, Cordarius, we'll be here all day, right? So
We
we
will.
not
We will. I'm a
so
talker.
I want you to leave us. I want you to have the last word, and I want you to leave us with a word of advice or word of motivation, or however you feel, whatever that's laid on your heart. And definitely, I want you to leave us with your social media handles and your website and things like that, where we can be in contact with you and follow you for those, those of us who want to look you up. So I'll give you a second to think about that. And while you're thinking about that, to my listeners, thank you guys for listening to the podcast. As you see, I have a podcast. Kadarius have a podcast. And if you ever thought about starting your own podcast, then you need to get your copy of the Start Your Podcast Now ebook. I wrote the ebook because I kept getting called and asked, how do I start a podcast? And so I made it real easy for myself and for others by writing it all down. So it's the Start Your Podcast Now ebook. Actually, Start Your Podcast Now in only 3 steps. So I help you start your podcast in 3 steps. If you follow it, you can have your podcast up and running in no time at all. You can get your copy of the Start Your Podcast Now ebook at ebooks.ejames.com. Again, that's ebooks.ejames.com. So make sure you guys go there and check that out. Also, make sure you guys follow me and check me out on my main webpage, which is the dealhealfulfill.org. Again, it's dealhealfulfill.org, because as you guys know, my mission and the mission of this podcast is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So make sure you guys go there and you can find out more of what I have got going on besides the podcast and ebooks and other things. You also can find out how you can book me to come to your school or organization to speak as a speaker or to run a workshop for you. You guys just, again, go to dealhealfulfill.org in order to get that information and check it out. Also, again, we mentioned about the Start Your Podcast Now ebook is at ebooks.ejames.com, but that is not the only book that is there. We have 3 other ebooks that are available, including the Core 4, which is the Core 4 values that every daughter should get from her father, which is the ebook that we actually used when we started the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, that we also talk about with the fathers of those 4 values and how they've implemented it into the lives of their daughters. But you can find all the ebooks at ebooks.ejames.com. Make sure you guys go there and check those out, as well as check us out on our inspirational t-shirt line, right? The Deal to Heal Tees. Again, that's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go and check us out. Again, we have inspirational t-shirts, and not only do we have t-shirts, the inspirational t-shirts, but we have our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. Make sure you guys go there and check them out. And last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been able to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. And we talk about everything regarding forgiveness, what it means to forgive, who forgiveness is for, forgiveness of self, forgiving others, forgiving the world, just everything surrounding forgiveness. And it's absolutely free. So whenever you're listening to this podcast, either one just ended or there's one coming up. So make sure you guys go to forgivenessmission.com in order to register for our next free virtual workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and just look up Forgiveness Workshop held by the Forgiveness Mission and sign up there. Again, forgivenessmission.com. It is absolutely free, but the information that is given is priceless. So make sure you guys go and meet us there. Cardarius, again, thank you so very much for being on.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story and your expertise. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ernest, for having me on, man. You're a bad man. You're a bad man. Hey, keep up the good work. All jokes aside, your work is needed in the community, and your work is needed in the Black community and all communities, bro. So keep up the work that you're doing to heal people. Keep up the work that you're doing as a girl dad, bro. You're doing an awesome job. You're a mighty man of God. Keep your integrity because your daughter is watching. And man, like you just keep doing what you're doing, bro. Super inspirational. You've motivated me. And so you're welcome. If you're out there and you have a trauma, I want to tell you a story, and then I'm gonna leave you guys. It'll be a quick story, I promise. Back in the day, I was playing basketball. I went up for a rebound, came down, tweaked my knee. My friends took me to the trainer. The trainer said, "Oh my goodness, look at the inflammation. My knee was like the size of the inflammation was the size of like a softball, which is pretty big, you know." And so she said, "But I don't." She did the range of motions test and stuff like that. And she said, "I don't see or I don't feel any structural damage." She went over to the ice machine, got a bag of ice, did the little trick to where they like make it flat. She said, "You're gonna have to put this ice on your knee." She said, "But I want to warn you that putting this ice on your knee will not feel good." She said, "You're going to have a whole lot of more emotions than just the healing that this ice is going to provide. She said, you're going to go numb. Your knee's going to go numb." She said, "It's going to feel worse. It's going to throb." She said, "But this ice is critical for the healing of your knee. This ice is essential for the inflammation to go down, and then I'll be able to tell you what's wrong with your knee." So if you're listening to this, I want to encourage you to put ice on your traumas. I want to encourage you to put ice on the things that have been hurting you, and it's going to be uncomfortable. Ernest and I, we make it look good. We just look like this, but we look like this because we endured the storm. We don't look like what we've been through. And I'm not saying that to scare you, because I think we look pretty good. I'm saying that to encourage you. You can heal from your trauma. You just got to put ice on it. You got to identify it. You got to communicate it. And you have to embrace you for who God created you to be. And when you put ice on your hurt, your whole life will be better. And it'll be better for you. It'll be better for your kids, your grandkids, and your great grandkids. I promise you. I love you. And you're not in this alone.
All right. All right. You want to leave us with your social media handles and your website?
Yeah. Thank you, man. I got in my bag and I forgot. My website is CoachWilliamsU.com. CoachWilliams, the letter U.com. My platform, Instagram, you can find me Coach Williams University on Instagram. You can find me Coach Williams University on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and X. Whatever social platform is Coach Williams University. Look me up. If you want me to mentor your child, I forgot to mention that. To go to my website, you'll see who I'm about on my website. And yeah, I appreciate you. That's how you can get in contact with me.
All right. All right. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.